It had been a long drive, and the sun was setting fast. Jack had been on the road for over 5 hours, his old car rumbling as the miles stretched out behind him. The GPS kept losing signal, and the road signs had become less frequent as he moved further from civilization. The small town of Ashford was supposed to be just another 2 hours away, but everything felt different now. The trees were thicker, the houses fewer, and the roads rougher. Jack had come here to escape. His life back in the city had become too noisy, too fast, too overwhelming. He had heard about Ashford through an old friend, a place where people could unwind, disconnect from the chaos, and find some peace. A quiet little town in the middle of nowhere. But now, as the shadows grew longer and the silence settled over the road, Jack began to question his decision. He slowed the car, looking out into the thickening woods on either side. There were no other vehicles, no houses in sight, just endless trees. The kind of trees that looked old and unsettling, their branches twisted like reaching hands. Then he saw it. A sign, barely visible, covered in overgrowth. It read, "Ashford, 10 miles." Jack breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't lost after all. But when he looked up again, something caught his eye. There on the edge of the road stood a small figure, a person, hunched over, standing in the shadows of the trees. He froze. The figure didn't move. It wasn't walking toward him, nor was it retreating. It simply stood there, motionless. Jack hesitated for a moment, then rolled down the window, his voice shaky as he called out, "Hey, you lost? Can I help you?" No response. The figure didn't even flinch. After a long, tense silence, Jack pressed the gas pedal. The figure remained there, unmoving, as he drove past. The woods seemed even darker now. The drive felt longer now, even though Jack knew he was close to Ashford. He kept his eyes on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Every now and then, he would glance into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that figure from the side of the road following him. But there was nothing, just the darkening stretch of the road behind him. Minutes passed, but the silence only seemed to grow heavier. The car's headlights cut through the gloom, illuminating the trees that now seemed to press in from all sides, as if the forest itself was closing in on him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jack saw the dim lights of the town in the distance. The road widened, and he could make out the faint outline of a few buildings. Ashford. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had made it. He drove into the town, and as he passed the first few houses, he noticed something strange. The streets were empty. No lights in the windows, no people walking on the sidewalks. The town seemed abandoned. He slowed the car, rolling to a stop in front of what looked like the town's small general store. The door was open, but there was no one inside, just a dusty counter, shelves full of old cans, and a single light flickering overhead. Jack got out of the car, feeling uneasy. This wasn't what he had expected. The town felt wrong, as though it had been forgotten by time itself. He heard footsteps behind him. Turning quickly, he saw the figure from the road standing at the edge of the store. The same hunched shape, the same stillness. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. "What do you want?" he called out, his voice rising in panic. The figure took a step forward. Suddenly, Jack noticed something else. There was something about the way the figure moved. It wasn't walking. It was floating. The person's feet didn't touch the ground. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He backed away from the figure, his mind racing. What was going on here? Why was this person following him? Before he could turn to run, the figure spoke. "You shouldn't have come," it rasped. Jack froze. The voice was low, almost like a whisper, but it carried an undeniable weight. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "You're not the first," the figure said. It took another step closer. "And you won't be the last." A cold wind blew through the streets of Ashford, and Jack could feel the temperature drop around him. His breath came out in visible puffs of air. The figure stepped forward again, and this time, Jack saw it clearly. It wasn't a person at all. The face was a hollow mask, the eyes dark and empty, the skin pale as death. Its mouth was open, as if it were trying to speak, but no sound came out. Jack turned and ran. His footsteps echoed through the empty streets of the town, but there was no one to hear him. The silence swallowed him whole as he sprinted past abandoned buildings, past homes with no lights on, past the empty streets that seemed to stretch forever. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get away. He reached the edge of the town, but as he looked back, he saw the figure once more. It was standing at the end of the street, watching him. Jack's breath was ragged as he ran. He didn't know if he could outrun whatever that thing was, but he didn't stop. And then, suddenly, he reached it. A road. A real road, with a street sign that read, Ashford 5 miles to exit. He was free. He had made it out. But as he drove away, his car shaking from the speed, Jack couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror. There, standing in the middle of the road, was the figure. It was watching him. The road stretched on, and Jack's mind raced. His heart thudded in his chest. He was almost home, almost safe. But the figure, the town, the emptiness, it would never leave him. Weeks passed. Jack tried to forget the horrors he had witnessed in Ashford, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him, that something was still out there, waiting. Then one evening, as he sat at his desk, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. Jack hesitated but answered. Hello? The voice on the other end was soft, but unmistakable. You shouldn't have come, it rasped. Jack's blood ran cold. There was a click, and the line went dead. The next morning, Jack drove back to Ashford, unsure why he had returned. Maybe he had to know if it was real. Maybe he just needed to see it again. But when he arrived, the town was gone. The roads were empty, the buildings abandoned, the streets silent. Ashford had never existed. He realized too late that the town had only ever been a shadow, a place that lived in the forgotten corners of the earth. And once you entered, you could never truly leave. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting the sky in fiery orange and purple hues. Ellie, Sam, Chris, and Mia were on their way to a remote cabin for a weekend getaway. Chris was driving while Ellie navigated with her phone's map. Are you sure this is the right way? Chris asked, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. The 2-lane road had given way to a dusty, unpaved track surrounded by dense woods. Ellie frowned, squinting at her screen. It says this is a shortcut. We'll save at least 30 minutes. Sam, lounging in the back seat, chuckled. That's how every horror movie starts, Ellie. Just saying. Mia leaned forward, peering out the window. It's fine. We'll laugh about this later when we're roasting marshmallow. The laughter died when the car hit a deep pothole, jolting everyone inside. Okay, that's it, Chris grumbled, pulling the car to a stop. Check the map again. Ellie's phone screen had turned blank, no service. She glanced up, her stomach knotting. I don't have signal. Mia tried her phone. Same here. The group exchanged uneasy glances. Chris sighed, stepping out to inspect the car. Dust swirled around his feet as the wind picked up. Tires blown, he called out. We'll need to fix it. Sam groaned, pulling himself out of the car. Great. Let's hope there's no chainsaw-wielding psycho lurking around. As they worked on the tire, the forest grew eerily silent. Not a single bird chirped. The only sound was the rustling of leaves as the wind wove through the trees. We're not far from the cabin, right? Mia asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ellie glanced at the map again, her uncertainty growing. I think it's about 5 miles away. Maybe less. Let's just keep moving once the tire's fixed, Chris said, though his voice lacked confidence. After driving for another mile, the group reached an unexpected clearing. A small town sat in the valley below, its dilapidated buildings bathed in moonlight. A single crooked sign read, Welcome to Still Hollow. Creepy, Sam muttered. It looks abandoned, Mia said, clutching her backpack. But maybe someone there can help us. Chris drove the car down a narrow dirt path leading to the town square. As they stepped out, the unsettling silence returned, more oppressive than before. The buildings were old, their wooden walls warped and rotting. A church steeple loomed in the distance, its cross tilted. Hello? Ellie called out, her voice echoing. No response. Sam pointed to a diner with shattered windows. Looks like no one's been here for years. The group walked cautiously into the diner. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. On the counter, a half-empty coffee cup sat, Its contents dried into a blackened crust. "That's not possible," Chris whispered. "How can it look this old but still have stuff like this?" Suddenly, the jukebox in the corner crackled to life. An old scratchy tune began playing, a slow, haunting melody. "Okay, nope, I'm out," Sam said, backing toward the door. But the door slammed shut, seemingly on its own. The door slammed with a deafening bang, making everyone jump. Sam's hand shot to the handle, but it wouldn't budge. He tugged at it repeatedly, his eyes wide with panic. "What the hell?" Sam shouted. "Let me out." Ellie stepped forward, her heart racing. She tried the door too, but it was stuck fast. "It's locked. What's going on?" Chris, always the practical one, examined the windows. "These are boarded up too. It's like this place is sealed off on purpose." Mia's eyes darted around the diner, searching for any sign of life. "I don't like this. Something's wrong." The jukebox's song crackled louder. The melody seemed to distort as if it were playing from a distance, but still, it felt suffocating. The noise made Ellie's head ache. Suddenly, a soft sound emerged from behind them, a slow, steady creak. Ellie spun around, but there was nothing, just the dark hallway leading further into the diner. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Chris raised an eyebrow. "Probably just the house settling. We've all been on edge since we got here." But the others weren't so sure. Mia was trembling slightly, and Sam was clearly uncomfortable. "Okay, let's figure out how to get out of here," Chris said, walking toward the back of the diner. The others reluctantly followed, each glancing over their shoulders, sensing that they were being watched. As they made their way through the shadowy hall, the oppressive silence wrapped around them. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, yellowed with age. Old photos hung crookedly, their faces barely visible through the grime. The air felt thick with the smell of mildew. At the end of the hall, there was a narrow door that appeared to lead into the kitchen. Chris pulled on the handle, and the door creaked open with a loud groan. Inside, the room was dimly lit, shadows pooling in every corner. There was an old refrigerator in the back, its door slightly ajar. "Maybe we can find something to use as a weapon or break a window to get out," Chris suggested. Ellie nodded, moving cautiously toward the fridge. She opened it, and a wave of cold air hit her face. Inside, there was only one item, an old shriveled carrot. The sight of it made her stomach churn. "Ugh, nothing here," she muttered. Just then, a loud bang came from behind them, the sound of something heavy falling. Everyone froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. "Where did that come from?" Mia whispered. The sound came again, louder this time, like something, or someone, was moving above them. Chris moved toward the kitchen door and peered into the hallway. "Stay close," he warned, his voice low and tense. The group gathered behind him, slowly making their way back toward the diner. But when they stepped into the main room again, it was different. The jukebox had stopped playing, but the air had grown colder, and an eerie silence filled the space. "Didn't we leave the chairs like this?" Sam asked, pointing toward a row of chairs at the counter. The chairs were now turned inwards, facing the group, as if they had been rearranged. "What the hell?" Ellie whispered. They heard it then, a soft, whispering voice, faint but unmistakable, coming from the corner of the room. "Get out," the voice murmured. Everyone froze. The voice sounded ancient, like it had been trapped in the walls for years. Mia's breath hitched, and she reached for Chris's arm. "Did you hear that?" Before anyone could respond, a loud crash came from the back of the diner, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow and heavy, echoing through the hall. "Run!" Chris shouted. But when they turned toward the door, the room seemed to shift. The diner's entrance was gone, only a solid wall remained. "Where's the door?" Sam screamed. The walls began to close in around them, the shadows deepening as the temperature dropped even further. Cold mist seeped into the room from under the doorways, curling around their feet. "Get out," the voice whispered again, but louder, more insistent. Panic surged through them as they desperately searched for an escape. Sam ran to the back door, pounding on it with his fists, but it was locked, just like the front. The air felt thick now, almost suffocating, and the walls seemed to hum with an eerie energy. "Where are we?" Mia gasped, stumbling backward, her eyes wide with terror. Chris reached for the nearest window, but it was too high to reach. He grabbed a chair and tried to smash it, but the glass didn't even crack. It was as though the entire building was built from something stronger than stone. "We're trapped," Ellie said, her voice shaking. A cold laugh echoed from the far corner of the diner. The sound was low, gurgling, like something alive. Slowly, they turned toward the corner. In the shadows, a figure stood, its body twisted and contorted in unnatural ways. Its face was obscured by darkness, but its eyes gleamed faintly, two glimmering white dots in the pitch-black void. "Who are you?" Chris demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it stepped forward, its movement jerky and unnatural. As it got closer, a deep, guttural growl filled the air. The temperature in the room plummeted, and Ellie's breath turned to mist in the freezing air. The figure's hand reached out, long, sharp fingers stretching toward them. Ellie screamed. They turned to flee, but as they ran toward the back hallway, the walls seemed to close in even faster. Suddenly, the door to the kitchen swung open with a deafening bang. A narrow passageway led out into the night beyond. "Out there," Mia shouted. They rushed toward the passage, pushing through the door. But just as they were about to escape, a heavy hand grabbed Ellie's wrist, pulling her back. She turned to see the shadowy figure right behind her. With all her strength, she pulled away and ran into the night, the others close behind. The cold air hit them like a slap to the face, but they didn't stop. They just ran, not daring to look back at the town that had once been still, but now felt alive with something darker. The town was silent again, but the feeling of being hunted was still in the air, thick and oppressive. As they ran deeper into the woods, they knew one thing for certain: whatever haunted Still Hollow had no intention of letting them go. And as they stumbled through the forest, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that they were running straight into something worse than they could ever imagine. The cold air nipped at their skin as they dashed through the dense woods, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the thick underbrush. Ellie could barely keep her footing, but she forced herself to move, her breath ragged and shallow. Sam, Chris, and Mia were close behind, their faces twisted in panic. "We can't outrun it," Sam shouted, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Only pushing herself harder, her legs burning from the effort. The oppressive feeling of being hunted gnawed at her, but no matter how fast they ran, the sense of dread only grew stronger. The forest seemed endless, and the shadows between the trees were deep and ominous. "We need to get to the road," Chris said, his voice tight with desperation. "Where is it?" Mia cried out. Ellie looked around, her heart hammering in her chest. The woods seemed to stretch on forever. They were surrounded by nothing but darkness and trees, but then, in the distance, she saw it. A faint glow, a street lamp flickering in the night. "Over there," Ellie shouted. "The road's just ahead." They pushed forward, their pace quickening as the glow grew brighter. But just as they neared the edge of the woods, a horrible screech split the air, sending them stumbling to a halt. Ellie turned around to see the shadowy figure from the diner emerging from the trees. Its twisted form moved with unnatural speed, its face still hidden in the darkness, but its eyes glowed like lanterns in the night. The air grew colder, the wind howling as the figure closed in on them. "You don't escape," it hissed, its voice a twisted echo that seemed to come from everywhere. The group stood frozen, fear paralyzing their limbs, but then, without warning, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The trees shook violently, their branches snapping in the gusts of wind. Ellie felt the earth shift beneath her feet. "Run!" Chris yelled again, his voice breaking. Without thinking, they bolted toward the road, the figure still chasing them. But as they reached the edge of the trees, the road seemed to stretch further away, impossibly distant. "No, it's not real," Sam screamed, his voice full of disbelief. It was like the town was pulling them back, trying to drag them into its depths once more. The road was disappearing, and the shadow was gaining on them. Ellie could hear its footsteps now, heavy, dragging, closer with every passing Then, as if by some miracle, the road appeared in front of them, the street lamp now flickering brightly, casting long shadows onto the pavement. Ellie ran towards it, her legs aching, her heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, she could hear the figure's low growl, but she didn't look back. She just ran. Finally, they reached the road. Sam was the first to stumble onto the pavement, gasping for air. Chris, Mia, and Ellie followed quickly, each of them too exhausted to speak. But the figure didn't follow them. It stopped just at the edge of the trees, staring at them with its glowing eyes. For a moment, everything was still. Then, as if it had never been there at all, the figure disappeared into the woods. The woods that had once seemed so vast and infinite now looked ordinary, just trees and darkened space. The road was quiet, the only sound the wind rustling through the leaves. They were free. The group managed to make it to a nearby town the next morning, exhausted and in shock. They told the police about the strange town, the abandoned diner, and the figure that had chased them. But when the authorities went to investigate, there was no sign of Still Hollow. No town, no diner, just trees and empty land. Even more unsettling, when they showed the authorities the map on Ellie's phone, the town had disappeared from it. It was as if it had never existed at all. As the days passed, the memories of Still Hollow haunted them. At night, Ellie could still hear the whispering voice, "Get out," echoing in her mind. Sam had nightmares of the shadowy figure watching him from the corner of his room. Chris became withdrawn, haunted by the fact that they had been so close to something terrible and had no idea how to explain it. Mia couldn't shake the feeling that the town was still watching them, waiting for them to return. They tried to move on, but none of them could forget what happened in the middle of nowhere. Still Hollow wasn't just a place, it was a curse, a place that existed outside of time, waiting to pull in anyone foolish enough to wander near its boundaries. And the town's curse was far. For those who dared to look, it would always be there. In the shadows, in the whispers, in the cold wind that carried a promise. You will never escape.